those peaches. Oh boy. I said, no, we didn't. I said, we didn't go get it. She says, listen, when I left, that peaches was in that screened-in porch where Alicia has all those plants. The door was closed. She said, I came back. The screen door was open. Bend down. Go get a switch. Wham, wham.
So is that how she punished you? She spanked you? She never made you go sit in the corner?
Hell no. We got a,
spanking?
and Botsy's got one too, you know. He was a step grandson, but you know, he was good, his son, and good it was from the first family. He'd come meet me. Okay. Second day. I'm going visit you. Valeu from there. You remember what happened yesterday? Y'all leave those peaches alone. I want to make some peach preserves. She went. I said, come on, let's go get a peach. I said, look, I'll close that screen door and stuff. Good. We went again, and you know, there wasn't much to do. And we used to go and we would look to see the cars coming. And we had a little game. And there was only two kind of cars. And maybe sometime it was 10 minutes between cars or 5 minutes. They had wagons and buggies, but the cars, the game was, when they'd look way out there, is it a Chevrolet or is it a Ford? That's the only two cars they had. And we'd guess. So that's what we did that first time. The second time, we went back and we were looking. And she had just left. I said, come on, let's go get a peach. Each got a peach. I said, we're going to close that screen door. She'll never know. Went back, we looked, and we were by the gate watching for the cars to come. That was our favorite pastime. So we went and we ate our peach. I said, look, I closed the screen door. I said, she'll never know. Comes back. She says, go get a switch. I said, what you mean it? I said, what you mean go get a switch? We didn't go get any peaches. The screen door, look, the screen door is closed. Yeah, she said, the screen door is closed. But she says, when I left here, she said, there wasn't, you know, the peach
pits
has the pits. She says, there's two pits right here by the sidewalk. They were there. Pow! Another spanking.
Oh my gosh. Well,
third day.
Oh, you're going to try again.
Third day. Same thing. She says, I'm going to visit Mrs. Herbert at Paradise. It wasn't very far. She said, you know what happened? She said, y'all stay out of those peaches. I said, come on, let's go get a peach. Close the screen door. Ate the peach. I said, don't throw the seed on the ground. I said, give me the seed. I went to the house. The house was built on pillars. I took those two seeds and I threw them under the house. There's no way she could crawl. So the third day, didn't get a whipping.
You made it through.
Yeah.
Was she a good cook?
Mama?
Yeah.
Oh, was she a good
What was the best thing she would make that you would like?
You know what my favorite
What's her specialty?
She'd make some wonderful crepes.
I remember her doing
crisp.
that. She made it for us too.
Yeah, they were crisp. But you know what my favorite was? Maiton, tender corn, with a big fat baking hen that had been baked, and you know it made a greasy gravy but it was
Did
rich.
she do it in the oven or on top of the stove? In a
She
don't
baked
remember?
it somehow. I imagine it was on the top of the stove or so. But it made a greasy gravy, and on that rice and that maïton.
it
And
was
she
good.
used to ask me, "What you want for your birthday? What kind of?"
What's your meal? What do
Yeah.
you want?
I said, "I want a big fat hen with the yellow gravy and some maïton." And that was usually when you'd get the maïton, you know, the real tender corn. It would be
Did she
at
grow
the
corn?
end of April or the beginning of May. And my birthday was May the 9th.
Oh, it's fresh.
Oh, I used to love
Did y'all grow corn behind the house on that land that you had?
I think we had some corn in the garden, and you could get corn for practically nothing, you know.
Would she bake you a cake? Was she a baker?
I don't remember a cake.
She never made. Did she make cookies or sweets, or she was mainly just?
She made crepes.
Yeah. Was that every day? I mean, would she just do that on the weekends, or it was a
Nearly
special-
every morning we had
Oh,
crepes,
every morning.
and we also had cornbread in the fireplace. And on Sundays, I remember this was special on Sundays. We had some grits. You know, grits was made with corn. Papa had that cornmeal. She had grits with little grillades. You know what a grillade
Little
is?
pork.
Yeah, a little kind of
Cuts.
pork chop with a brown gravy.
Gravy over
And
the.
you put it on the grits and that pork meat on Sunday. Oh, that was good.
For lunch?
For breakfast,
for
after we came
breakfast.
back from church on Sunday morning. Oh, on Sunday, most of the time, we'd have a baked chicken on Sunday. On Monday, it was funny, nearly every day it was the same thing. On Monday, it was usually a stew with
Chicken?
with no chicken, with potatoes and just a kind of
Vegetables?
stew. And I guess it depended during Lent and stuff. So it was usually.
Did y'all ever have fish or seafood?
Well, steak wasn't that expensive. I don't know if we didn't have steak on Thursday or maybe Saturday. I remember going to the.
But she would cook the same things every, day of the week.
Yeah, nearly every certain day, unless it was a birthday or something.
She never made spaghetti and meatballs.
I didn't like spaghetti and meatballs. I was never a spaghetti and meatball.
But she made gumbo.
Yeah, she made a good gumbo, okra gumbo. There were two kind of gumbos, okra gumbo and gumbo filet. Okra gumbo was made with just okra.
No meat.
Well, sometimes they had sausage in it. And the other gumbo was a gumbo with no okra, and we call it a gumbo filet. It was just a brown gumbo, and it had
You
chicken in it.
used the filet powder.
And we had the filet bottle. and stuff.
Did Nanan cook?
What?
Did Nanan cook?
Ho, 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 ho. She was a terrible cook.
She was always working, I guess.
Oh,
didn't know how?
Boy, I was about 6 years old. Mama had kidney trouble. And she had a niece from St. Martinsville that worked at the Baptist Hospital in New Orleans. She was a nurse there. And Mama had kidney stones. And nowadays, there's ways to break
Break
the
it up.
stone. But in those days, they took your kidney out. So Mama went to New Orleans. And Lilia, they didn't say Lilia, they pronounced the name Lilia. Lilia O'Brien was Mama's niece, and she worked at Baptist Hospital. So they operated Mama for Lilia free. They took the kidney out. And guess what? Then Nan was cooking. Poof! I was mad. She cooked rice and she didn't put any salt in it. She wasn't a good cook. And green beans, she cooked some green beans. All she did was boil the green beans. I don't think they had onions or bacon or nothing. I was in a bad humor when, of course, I was close to Nana, and she was like my second mother, but she was not a good cook. We went up to Oklahoma, and Helen, as particular as she was, she cooked some green beans with some salt pork in it and onions.
You had never had it that way.
I had never had green beans with salt pork and onions. I thought, oh boy. But she was so particular.
Where was she from, Helen?
Well, I think she was originally from Florida.
And where did they meet?
They met in Shawnee. And listen, Albert got through school in dental school. This is another interesting story. He got through dental school in Tulane, you know. Loyola had a dental school and a medical school. Tulane had a dental school and a medical school. To go to dental school, you didn't have to go to pre-dent. You got out of high school.
Really?
You got out of high school, you went right into dental school. 3 years.
Wow.
He went 3 years. He was 21 years old.
And
Somebody told him about Oklahoma, about how you could make money.
Well, he was a lot older than you, right?
Yeah.
Was it
He
during,
was 22 years older than
was
me.
it during the time of the Dust Bowl? You know how that happened in Oklahoma?
Yeah. Well, it was around that time. When we went, they would have dust storms, but they had more tornadoes and stuff.
Yeah.
But they had dust storms. But the dust storms were more in the Panhandle and more in New Mexico and Arizona and stuff, and Kansas. Oklahoma didn't have too much dust storm. They had the tornadoes.
While
and
you
stuff.
were there?
Yeah.
Did y'all have a storm cellar?
What?
Did y'all have a storm cellar?
No.
Well, if a tornado came, weren't you supposed to run like in a basement or something?
Well, some people that had houses about a block from us, some of them had storm cellars.
You never had to go in one?
What?
You never had to go in one?
Well, we didn't have one.
Well, could you go into your
One
neighbor's?
time I was working on Saturday, and on Saturday, Albert would work Saturday morning, and I'd work Saturday sometimes all day. And I would take that money and I would buy some extra things. That's how I paid for my shotgun, working on Saturday. I was working on a Saturday, about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Well, I had a car by then, you know, dental school. I think I had a Dodge or something. I was working. Looked outside, and you could see the storm clouds. I think it was about 3 o'clock. You see outside right now?
Dark.
It was blacker than that. It was pitch black. got in the car, went home. And we were home, and you could look up and you could see the clouds going this way and that way. Yeah, I didn't see a funnel, but you could see the clouds. Well, about 2 miles from where we lived, they had an Elks Club and they had St. Gregory's College. And they had a little Baptist university right there. You know, I remember all of these things, you know. And the tornado passed by the Elks Club. And Harold Valton and his wife, Harold Valton, was from New Orleans, but he was working at Sears Roebuck in Shawnee-Ilse, and he was the manager of the store in Shawnee, Harold Valton.
And y'all met just because y'all were both from Louisiana? Somebody connected
Well,
you two?
we were both in the Knights of Columbus.
Oh.
We were both Catholic and stuff. Oh, all kind of things, you know, would fall in place and stuff.
Well, tell me about your dad. You don't know much about him since he died when you were so young? About his family or...
Well, yes.
Like, what happened to his first wife?
Well,
And what was her name?
I don't know if she didn't die of TB. Uncle Eve, next door. TB was pretty common. They had a son called Hilliard. His nickname was New Beat, but his real name was Hilliard. A lot of people had nicknames, and he was kind of short, I remember it, and he died of TB.
He was your first cousin?
Well, it was the Nan's first cousin.
Oh, okay.
You know, they were Latours. That was Papa's first wife. And Papa, he was quite a man. I think he was the first mayor of Ville Platte. He had a blacksmith shop. I remember going and see him work in the blacksmith shop. His shirt off, beating plow points. You put that plow point in the fire. I remember watching him. And he put it in the fire, and it gets red hot. And he would beat, you know, when the iron is very hot, red hot, you put it on an anvil, a big iron anvil, and you take a hammer and you hit it, and you can mash it, you know,
to shape it,
and it makes a blade.
So he would make knives, or he would make farm implements to sell, or what was his, like, what kind of blacksmithing? Did he do horseshoes, or?
He did horseshoes, and he would beat plow points for 10 cents a plow point. You know, I don't remember too much. He was quite a good carver. He was talented.
Did he go to?
I saw him carve some wooden ducks. You know, he was a duck hunter, and he caught.
You went duck hunting with him, or were you too young?
I was a little young. I went dove hunting with him, but not duck hunting.
Did you have your own gun?
I had a 410, and one time we were dove hunting, and it was kind of hard. I guess 6 or 7.
Would Batsis go with you?
Not as much as me, but he brought Batsis a couple of times. And we were hunting, and some doves, they had a lot of doves. They had lit in a field where they had those goat weeds about that high. And we were walking side by side. He was on this side, I was here. And I had cocked that 410. It was kind of hard. You had to pull back on the little hammer and stuff, and I guess I'm 6 years old. We walked.
You were only 6 years old?
6 or 7, I don't know. Boy,
He
my
hurt
ribs
you.
hurt.
You know what? He probably crushed you when he was,
Yeah.
because he picked you up like, and you were just a rag doll.
Oh boy, no wonder it hurts so much.
That's what that is.
It,
I
it's
hope he
gonna
didn't-
hurt for a few days.
I hope he didn't break a rib.
Oh boy, when I breathe.
You might.
I don't know.
Just wait and see. Tomorrow you might have to go see somebody.
No.
Well, you don't want to be in pain.
You can't do too much with broken ribs.
You can't?
They heal. I broke a rib when I was about 7 years old.
How?
In the barn.
Y'all
in
had a
Bill
barn?
Black. Oh yeah, we had a barn.
Did y'all have cows?
Well, we had 2 or 3 cows.
Milk cows?
What?
That you would milk?
Yeah. And Jack would milk them. You know, Jack, my brother. But then when I got in high school, I think maybe he started work. Well, he was working at the bank, and I got in high school, and you know, we had a cow. I don't know if they called her Beauty or what, but she didn't have very big nipples, and you know, you can milk a cow like that, but hers were kind of short, so you catch at the top and press down, and I'll milk. And I was in high school, and I'd play football, and sometimes they'd walk on my knuckles, and it was hard when my knuckles were hard. You know, there's a lot of things, just like when we were playing in the barn, and Papa has said we had built a little clubhouse at the top of the barn. That's why they would storm
Keep the hay?
store the bales of hay.
Hay.
And beneath were the stalls where the cows would go, and you'd feed them and you'd
What
milk
about
'em.
horses?
No, we didn't have horses. And so we would, and we were playing, and Papa said, I don't want y'all playing up there in that barn or something. And the barn doors were open, and they had 2 or 3 of my little buddies, maybe Baptiste and Dick Buller and stuff, and we were up there, and they were playing, and I was saying, look, y'all can't play in here. And we had a ladder that would go up in the back, and in the front was those 2 front doors. And I was trying to chase them out. And I went to the front to make them leave, and I went a little too far. Down I go
From the top story?
from the 2nd story. And I could have broke my neck, but I'm coming down. The barn doors were open. I hit one of the doors, and evidently it turned me over. And there was a 4x4 board post like that was down in the bottom, kind of half buried in the manure. You know,
Laying
it was
down
so-
or was
laying like that. It wasn't upright, it was like that. And I fell on that.
on your back?
And I don't know if it was the back or the front. And evidently I broke a rib. When I'd breathe, it would hurt. I didn't say anything. It took a week or 2, and I guess when you're young, boy, that
It hurts when you take a deep
when I
breath.
take a deep breath. Yeah, it's killing me. And
Well,
so, anyway, the rib finally healed. And, you know, I'm older now, so I guess it'll hurt more.
it'll just
What?
take a longer to heal.
Yeah,
So at least you kind of know what it is.
I've got that figured out.
Well, did your mother have a butter churn? Would she make butter with that milk?
Yeah.
And
Made
y'all,
butter.
and y'all would just drink the cow's milk, or she'd have to boil it, or
Well, we usually had a good bit of milk, you know, and she'd make that, and then maybe the rest of the milk she would put it in a bag and put it on a wire in the back room, and it was in a bag, and she would drip it. And
And
you
that
know,
cheese?
it made the cottage cheese.
Oh.
We call that caillé. In French, the word is caillé.
And how would you eat that?
What?
How would you eat it? With like for breakfast?
Well,
or with,
you could eat it in breakfast, and if you had a little cream and sugar.
so it was like a dessert kind of?
Well, that was.
Did
breakfast.
she do a lot of canning?
Yeah, they had couscous and caillé.
Oh.
We never had couscous.
Yeah.
Couscous is usually just cornmeal
And milk.
that's put in an iron pot, and you put a little water, and you keep stirring it, and the couscous, it made like little hard grits of stuff, and you could put that cottage cheese, couscous and caillé. That was pretty good, but I didn't care too much.
Did y'all have fruit trees in the backyard where she would like can fruit?
Well,
or-
we had fig trees, and we had a little peach orchard. We didn't make that many
Oh,
peaches.
she must have liked peaches.
Well, the peaches, I remember the peaches that was on the screen post.
That
was
wasn't
sold.
from your orchard?
No, that wasn't some that we grew. That was some peaches. They had a peach orchard about 5 miles out of Ville Platte, going towards Opelousas on the right-hand side.
They were
Beautiful
good.
peaches.
Did she like to make pie with them?
And that was Mr. Adras Lafleur. Well, I think she'd make mostly peach preserves.
Oh, what about ice cream? You never made ice cream? Did y'all have a churn thing? You
Yeah.
made some?
Oh yeah, we made ice cream.
What flavor?
Well, I think
Fig?
we made fig ice cream, and I think we made vanilla. And then once, you know, that was later in life, then Mama used to make, we had got a refrigerator, and she would take the little things that make the ice cubes out, and just the empty ice things, and she would put some Ovaltine, I think, and maybe a little chocolate syrup, and stir it out and put it in that day, and it would freeze and make pretty good ice cream.
I guess so in the summer. Y'all didn't have air conditioning, I guess. You didn't have an air conditioner in that old house.
No, we had
It
we
must
had
have been
those
hot.
big windows, and usually
And ceiling fans in all the rooms? No.
maybe in the front room.
You just slept with the windows open?
Yeah. Well, we had screens.
Yeah.
And also, in the summer, we had mosquito nets.
Over the beds?
Yeah, you had the mosquito nets. And,
Were there screens on the windows?
well, I don't remember if we had screens on all the windows or not. And then when I was in the 7th grade, I was going out for track and stuff. I was coming back. We'd walk to school. If you lived in town, the street buses didn't pick you up. You had to live out of the city limits. Now, our house was about 10 blocks from the school. 10 city blocks, maybe 12, I don't know. But in the morning, then Nan had to get there and stuff. And in the morning, I think Papa would bring us to school and we'd get out. At noon, either he or Nan had a car and we'd come back and eat lunch at home.
You didn't pack a lunch sometimes and eat there?
Hardly ever,
Most everybody went home?
except the people that lived in the
Ah,
country. They had a lunch. That's the only time I'd hear of a lunch. You know what that lunch was?
Bread?
one sweet potato and a crackling. That's what most of them had. Lunch.
And did y'all have outhouses at school, or did they have bathrooms?
They had bathrooms.
Bathrooms.
Yeah.
Y'all
they-
always had a bathroom in your house?
Yeah. Yeah, we had a bathroom.
I remember on that back
Well,
porch
like-
there was
like-
like a
Like when we first got married in the country,
Mom.
when his mom and daddy, they didn't have a bathroom. They had an outhouse.
they didn't have running water in the house, they just had a well, or
Yeah, they just had a well. They didn't have electricity.
oh they didn't.
When we first got married, no electricity, no running water. They had a kerosene stove. You know, you could buy cola. We called it cola in those days. But the real thing was kerosene. And so, yeah, kerosene. And,
But you always had electricity.
in Ville Platte, yeah, we had electricity. Like as I said, when I was small, Mordred said, I said, the electric light in the back room, they had a little garde-manger, a little a cabinet where they'd keep the food
The
in.
pantry?
And, well, we had a pantry too, but the garde-manger was a little, like a safe with
Like a pie
two
safe.
screen doors,
Yes.
and it had about 3 shelves in there, and you'd put the food in there, and you'd close the doors, and
Keep
they
the
had
flies
screens.
out, yeah.
So that kept the flies from garde-manger. The garde is guard, and manger is food.
Right.
So it was to guard the food from the flies going in there. You know.
What would she keep in that big pantry where you'd walk in at the back of the kitchen?
Well, that's where they would store canned goods, and maybe if they had flour, and they in the pantry.
It was a big
It-
room, seems like.
It was a big area in there, and they had canned foods.
But like when she got meat, like you had to buy it and use it right away. There was no.
Yeah, usually you could get meat in the summer. You either had to use it that day or the next day, and if you lived in the country, they used to have what they called boucheries. They had a little group of maybe 4 or 5 families, and each week
Somebody would
a
donate.
different family would kill a calf, and they would separate the meat. And in the winter, they would kill the pigs in the winter. And when they would kill the pigs, they would make the cracklings and boudin and stuff,
What about?
and they'd get the fat, and they had a big china round. You've seen these round
Pots?
porcelain bowls, and they would take the pork meat and they would salt it. Salt kind of helps preserve it, and then they'd pour the fat on top of the meat, and that jar of meat with salt and covered with fat would last 2 or 3 months in the winter. In the summer, you couldn't do that in the summer. But in the winter,
They
So,
kept it outside?
what?
They kept that big pot, I guess, outside? In the
Oh,
cold?
when our coffee was.
What about like a smokehouse? Did y'all have a smokehouse?
I think we had one, but Winnie's mom and daddy, boy, they had a good smokehouse.
Yeah, because he
Yeah.
raised cattle.
Yeah,
he had
we
cattle.
we had a smokehouse, but I don't remember too much about using the smokehouse.
Do you ever remember having bacon for breakfast? Or that wasn't a thing?
Not too much, no. We didn't have bacon for breakfast. It was
Correct.
usually cornbread and milk, or sometimes on Sunday, grits and griots. That was certain.
Did you start drinking coffee when you were really young? Your mother didn't make coffee,
Yeah,
but you
but
didn't.
I
drink it?
didn't drink coffee.
Like coffee milk.
I might have drank coffee milk, but not coffee. And they used to make that coffee, and they had those kerosene lamps. And early in the morning, they'd put the little drip coffee pot, and they had a little bag, and they'd pour a little hot water, and they'd make the coffee on top of that lamp by
On
the
top of the
fireplace.
lamp? Did she have a wood burning fire? I mean,
Yeah.
kitchen stove, where you'd have to have wood in her kitchen.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. We had a wood stove.
Was it your job to go get the wood? She had to buy the wood or cut the wood or.
Yeah, you had to split the wood and stuff like that. Usually, you had certain kinds.
Well,
of
after
wood.
your father died, you had to do all that stuff? When your father died, did you have to do all those kind of things?
Well, maybe we had a kerosene stove, and I did certain things, but you know, maybe we had gotten a kerosene stove.
Did you used to make your bed every morning?
What?
Did you used to make your bed?
No, I never made the bed.
You never made the bed?
No, but I remember I started to tell you. I was coming back from high school, probably in the 6th grade. In the afternoon, I'd walk back. I started having a pain
Oh.
in the side. It was hurting. I didn't think I'd make it. I finally got home.
You were by yourself walking?
Well, no, Mama was there.
Oh, she'd go walk, pick you up from the school?
No, she was. Oh, I was walking by myself.
Yeah.
But when I got home, I told her how I was hurting. And right away, a lot of people in those days had appendicitis. You know, when you had a pain or something.
I heard now they
They
can
called-
give, yeah.
They called Dr. Littell. Yeah, they can open up and do something.
But I
and-
just heard on the radio that they can now, with children, give antibiotics, and sometimes it'll go away.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Well, I have.
So you had to be taken to the hospital?
Yeah, I was taken to the hospital. I remember when they gave me that ether. Got home, you know what they, in those days, you had an operation. When you came home, you didn't get up and walk the next day. You stayed in bed for 20 days. I was so weak when finally the
You
NSA,
could hardly walk anymore.
I couldn't hardly walk. Oh, things were so different.
Yeah. Now they make you get up right after surgery.
And like I said, and then we had organic chickens every day.
Free
Nowadays, you get a chicken that's raised on the farm. It's an organic
Yes, and
chicken.
it's a lot and they free range chicken.
Yeah.
So when you had chicken most of the time as meat, or would you have?
No, we had chicken. We had chicken on Sunday.
Oh, during the
and,
week you didn't have meat.
In the winter, I think we had a lot of pork, and in the summer, I remember.
You never went
Well,
fishing?
I remember going to, we'd go fishing quite a bit. In the summer, we'd go fishing in the summer.
And hunting birds.
Hunting birds was more the fall and the winter.
And who would clean the birds? Your dad or your mom? You would?
Sometimes all of us. We would feather the ducks. Big mallard duck. Feather the duck, and dress it. You weren't supposed to sell them, but you know what they sell a big mallard duck? All feathered and cleaned? 25 cents.
And they have it at the grocery store?
No.
Oh, just door to door like?
It was hunters that would sell them. They didn't have them in grocery stores.
Did
And it was supposed to be against the law, but everybody'd sell them.
What about alcohol?
Well,
You
When
don't
I was
remember?
small, it was prohibition.
Like, was that in the 20s or the 30s? Prohibition.
I think it was in the late 20s. I think when Roosevelt, I think in the 30s. But we used to have a barrel, a little barrel with whiskey upstairs.
Your
And
dad would make it?
what?
Would your dad make alcohol? No?
No, I guess he'd buy it.
And store
They
it up
had
in
a
the
little barrel upstairs.
to hide
And
it?
listen, in the clothes closet, in the first bathroom, they had a bottle of ginger ale. That was for Papa to drink with his whiskey. And I knew where the ginger ale was. And I'd go in there, and it was kind of hidden. I'd take it out, and I'd take a swallow.
He never noticed that?
I don't know.
Well, because they didn't have soft drinks. I guess y'all didn't drink like.
Well, soft drinks, yeah, but it costs a nickel for a big bottle of knee-high and stuff. Yeah, when I got in high school and stuff. But you'd go to the meat market in the summer, 25 cents. You'd go to the meat market, get a big round steak for about 25 cents, enough to feed the whole family. Then Mama would say, don't forget, ask for the bones. We had a dog or something, and sometimes Mama would use the bones to make a soup.
But did you
And
have a
when-
dog?
And we had a dog for a while.
I never heard you talk about a dog.
We didn't have a dog long.
Y'all had cats?
Oh, we had cats. We had cats. That when I was, oh well, we had a calico cat, and we had that calico cat here. But we had a cat that we had several cats, and when we first got married, we always had cats at the house. And I remember some of them were such good fighters. A dog would come, and the cat would run away and climb. We had these tall fences, about 6 feet tall. Cat would get to the top of the fence, and he'd turn around.
And jump.
And the dog, you know, a cat can climb a fence. The dog would go, and he'd try to jump. And the cat would, wow! He'd hit the dog on the nose and stuff. So if the cat could get to a high fence, the dog, he'd take a beating.
But were they tamed cats? Or were they your pets? Or were they just for the born and the mice?
Well,
and
everybody usually, there was cats all over, but usually
They
we
were.
got cats.
Yeah.
And when we were first married, I used to love little kittens. And so T and there were in the summer, of course, when we were married, I was going to school or something. But in the summer, T and I would go along the fence line, and Grandma in the country, you know, Grandpa's wife there. Anyway, Agnes,
Anise?
niece, yeah.
Yeah, they spelled her name Anise.
We would go and we would catch dragonflies, you know. You'd catch them by the tail.
You and
know,
Uncle
they
T?
were lit. They would catch them we'd catch them. T and I. And we would pull 1 or 2 wings out. And the dragonfly was still alive, but it couldn't fly. It could fly a little bit, you know. It would just fly a little. And then we had the little kittens, and we would catch the dragonflies, and we'd come and we'd pull a wing or break a wing or something, and the little kittens would try to catch them. It was fun watching that. And Grandma in the country, she thought, 2 grown men going catching dragonflies. She said they'll
Playing
think.
with the cats, the kittens.
But life was, in a way
Simple.
so much simpler.
Yes.
But we
Yes.
enjoyed life.
I think people talk to each other a lot more then than they do today.
Yeah. And people would visit each other. They didn't have a television. That's a lot of people didn't even have a radio. I think we were the first family in Ville Platte to have a radio.
Didn't you say because Jack put one together?
Yeah. Jack put one together. And what happened to Jack, he was probably as bright as Albert, his boy that was a dentist, but then the Depression came. And Papa had expanded his business. He had a blacksmith shop, a corn mill, a hardware store, and he even had the Model T agency. He was the car dealer.
How could he do all that? That's a lot
And
of.
he had a lot of
He must have people
investment.
working for
And
him.
evidently he had some some money, but he was overextending himself. He was expanding.
Was he borrowing from the bank?
Evidently he had to borrow for the bank. He was investing and growing. That's how some
Yeah.
people get very. But
Right.
he was the first mayor of Ville Platte. And as I said, I remember when I first went to Oklahoma, and Albert would work sometimes on Sundays, and I forgot what his wife, what Helen would say. And he told me, he says, I can remember how hard Papa worked beating plow points for 10 cents a plow point. And so for that reason.
He was, yeah. They never could have children? Did they ever talk about that?
I guess they couldn't have
They
children.
never talked
I don't
about
know.
it.
Never heard about it. And then he would go to a meeting, a midwinter meeting in a dental meeting. He was one of the leading dentists in Shawnee. When he first came to Oklahoma, he went to a town called Chickasha. When he got out of school, somebody had told him about in Oklahoma, and it was like a wild goose chase. He went to Chickasha. It wasn't like he had found, and he was up there, and already he was only 20. He had to put a false hold on his name, so I guess he had to be careful. And somebody said there's a dentist in Oklahoma that's trying to sell his practice.
That's why he moved to Shawnee?
I don't know if I told you this, but the dentist's name was Dr. George Long, L-O-N-G. Huey Long's brother. You've heard of Huey Long.
Yes. So did he buy his practice from George Long?
Yeah, he heard about that practice. American building, the 3rd or 4th floor. That's where our office was. They had a couple of drugstores at the bottom.
Have you ever gone back over there to see if that building was still there?
Yeah. They had a couple of drugstores at the bottom. So Dr. George Lone had heard Albert was coming. So he told his friend, he says, look, I want you to go, and this young guy is coming Saturday or a certain day. I want you to go to the drugstore. And every 15 minutes, I want you to call me on the phone. Albert went there, went up for the interview. Wait a minute, the phone was ringing. Hello? No, I'm busy. I've booked up for a week, and call me later. I'm up. started to talk. Ring. Hello? Oh, I'm busy. I don't have an opening for 1 week, or it'll be next week, but call me later. The phone rang 3 or 4 times. How much you want? So he sold the office to Albert. And later on, somebody at the drugstore told him that Dr. Lone had put someone there to call him every 10 minutes.
Oh, no.
And then I'm working there, you know, and I had made some friends and stuff. Well, Albert would go. He was really one of the top dentists in Shawnee. He was sharp, and he'd go to the midwinter dental meeting in Chicago. Big deal. I was left at the office to do the fillings and stuff. And some people would come. I had all kind of experiences. I had different experiences of something. But anyway, come, and I'd have this one man that came, and he wasn't there, and came up to the window. He says, I'd like to have an appointment. I have 2 things. I'd like to have an appointment. Okay? Dr. Albert LaFleur, his brother's here. Oh, he says, that'll do. He says, I'm anxious to get the tooth out. So it was $3 to pull a tooth. Now, you go get a tooth pulled, it's at least 100 and sometimes 200 and
Yes.
stuff. And way up there. Pull the tooth. Pull the first tooth, $3. If you had 2 teeth pulled, $3 for the first one, $2 for the second. Pull 2 teeth for $5 and stuff. Anyway, so this guy had come and had a tooth pulled. The niece was born. We were staying in a little apartment. And he had gone to the midwinter meeting in Chicago. And a guy had come in, and I had pulled a tooth for him. I don't remember the guy's name. But he had remodeled the office, and we had each a room with a dental lab between us. He had given me some old beat up equipment, but I was lucky to have that and stuff. Anyway, that guy comes in, and it was, Albert had worked on it before. And if someone came in for extractions, he wanted to do it because it wasn't hard to do. And usually if you did an extraction, you'd make the false teeth. There was more money in that rather than cleaning and filling. So he had been to the dental meeting and stuff, and he came back, and this guy that while he was away, I had extracted a tooth. The guy came back, went to the window, said, I'd like to have a tooth extracted. And Albert had extracted some teeth for him before. And so the girl says, okay. She says, which, he says, either one doesn't make any difference. So I wasn't busy. So the girl said, well, Dr. Kenneth will take you. When that man walked in my office and I was about to extract it, he went in a rage. He said, we're not gonna have any of that here. He yelled at me. It hurt me so much. I started crying, put the forceps down, and I left. I took off, went home. I was crying. The niece was in the baby bed. And she said, what happened? I said, Albert yelled at me first. the ring rang. The phone rang. She says, it's Albert. He wants to talk to you. I said, I don't want to talk to him. I said, we're going back to Louisiana. I said, by that time, I made a little money. I had a car. We could have come back to Louisiana. And I was ready. And I said, he called and apologized and stuff. And then, you know, we made up.
How long were you his partner? For how long did you practice with him?
It must have been 6 or 7 years.
That's a long time.
Yeah, that's a good while.
And then you kind
And
of
I had a good practice,
you got a lot of experience.
and I had a lot of experience, and I had bought some new equipment. And I got there. I had an old shower. You had to pump it to make it go. I had an old X-ray machine. You don't see that kind. It was like a. You see that table by the lamp
Yes.
was? They had a square bottom part, and then on the top they had a head and stuff that you moved. They had some exposed wires. He had a new X-ray machine, you know, but he gave me his old equipment. I started practicing. I didn't have any money, so I was able to start.
But did you
practicing.
learn about
And so
that machine
I
at school?
take that X-ray machine to take pictures, and sometimes, pow! You see a spark fly from the wire to the top where the light fixture was. It would pop.
Scared, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, when you were in dental school,
I think the first. Oh, in dental school we had better X-rays than that.
so you had never seen one like that.
No, you know, that was an old one that he had used. So when I went to practice, I had that old equipment. He bought himself new equipment. He built a new office. We had a beautiful waiting room.
Did he get a new partner when you left?
Yeah,
He did.
and then he developed leukemia, and he didn't live much longer. He died. He got a fellow by the name of Pete Tarrant.
From Oklahoma?
And it was a guy I knew the family well. They were Catholic and stuff. And a lot of the Catholics went to Albert because he had dropped the Catholic religion.
He did.
He became a Mason. That's another thing.
What's
you
that?
became a
I
Mason.
don't exactly know. I didn't know that it's a religion.
I don't know what Masons are exactly, but
It's like a secret
you couldn't
society.
be a Catholic and a Mason. The Catholic Church.
Did they have church? The Masons had a church, Masonic temple,
I don't know what it is.
like a Masonic temple.
Yeah, Masonic temple. But it was an order, and even, I guess the Masons had believed, and they were anti-Catholic.
Yeah,
And
because
so Albert became an Episcopalian. Now,
after the Mason,
Episcopalians and Masons, they got along. But Masons and Catholic, I don't know what was the conflicting beliefs. But if you were an Episcopalian and a Mason, they got along fine. But a Mason and
You
a
don't
Catholic,
know what Masons believe?
the Catholic Church forbid you to be a Mason. In other words, you couldn't be a Mason and be a Catholic. So he became an Episcopalian.
so Mason is well, I don't know what that would be. A Mason
I
is
don't
not a
know
religion.
exactly because I don't know.
You never
the-
talked to him about it. He never tried to get you to be a Mason.
No. I probably wouldn't have been because I had big Catholic all my life, and I was.
Well, didn't he
No.
grow up Catholic too?
And then I went to Loyola, a dental school. You know, I was educated by the Jesuits and stuff. Now, when Albert here, he went to Tulane, so maybe if he had gone to Loyola, maybe he'd have never become a Mason. I don't know.
Was he a Mason when you were up there?
Yeah, I guess he was.
Oh, y'all never went to church together.
No, he didn't go to the Catholic Church. He was an Episcopalian. I don't know if he still went to the Masons.
But your father was a Catholic, right?
Yeah.
And your mom?
Well, yeah, everybody in Ville Platte. Oh, they looked at Baptist people as oddballs. Yeah, and so when we went to Shawnee, the Catholics were in minority. So
that's like in Shreveport.
The people that were Catholic were very close to each other.
There's hardly any Catholics up in Shreveport.
Yeah.
It's all Baptists.
Yeah, well, the Catholics were very close, and they worked together.
Were you in Knights of Columbus there?
Yeah, I became a Knight of Columbus. Yeah, I was the Grand Knight of the Knights of Columbus
Shawnee?
and stuff.
What about when you were young? Would you ever go to St. Martinsville with your mom?
To St. Martinsville?
Yeah, did you spend a lot of time over there?
Not a lot of times.
Didn't you have a lot of relatives there?
Yeah, half of the town. Half of the town.
But you wouldn't go very often?
Roland, listen.
The Bienvenus?
Roland Bienvenu's mother, her name was Lowell. Well, Lowell and Mama were like first cousins, but they were more like sisters. That was Roland Bienvenu's mother. So when we go to St. Martinsville, from Ville Platte to St. Martinsville, took 1 day. Well, it was
in
gravel.
A buggy, in a horse, how would you drive? In a car?
A car. It was gravel roads. If you'd have gone on a buggy or wagon, probably it'd take you 2 days. But from Ville Platte to St. Martinsville, you can say took the better part of a day.
So when y'all went, y'all stayed for a while.
Oh, we always stayed overnight, and sometimes we'd stay 2 nights.
And you'll stay with Lowell?
Well, Aunt Adele was married to Oscar Duro. It was a Duro, but Aunt Adele, I forgot what her last name was, but Aunt Adele was my godmother and stuff.
Who's my godmother?
What?
Who is my godmother? I know Uncle Al was my godfather, but you never really talked about my godmother. Do you remember?
I don't know if it wasn't Terrell's mother.
Who's Terrell?
Well, they had a nonquiance. His name was Leonce. And maybe his wife was your godmother.
So, Grandpa's sister-in-law?
No, it was Grandma's sister-in-law.
Oh, because didn't Grandpa have a brother named Leonce? Or no, am I mistaken?
I think that was his brother-in-law, Leonce.
Oh, okay.
That was his brother-in-law.
But he had a brother named with an L, didn't he? Leon?
He had
Louis.
Oswell, and the older brother. Avi. That was Avi.
Who is
Elze, Louis, and the fat one there. They were 5 brothers.
5?
And he had 1 sister. They were 4 brothers.
They didn't look alike, did they?
Well, they didn't look too much alike, no. No, they didn't look too much alike. I think Boz,
Who was the
Oh.
fat one?
that was Lewis.
Oh.
Yeah, he had a nickname. They call him Sicky Boy. I don't know why. I don't know why they called him.
Is that a French term? Sicky.
No, that's a nickname.
Sicky.
Sicky Boy. I don't know why they called him that. And he was kind of the black sheep. He wasn't,
Friendly?
well, he wasn't very prosperous, and I don't know. They used to make fun of him.
He was younger than Grandpa?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Grandpa was
He-
this,
The Boz was the youngest one, I swear.
and his sister was the youngest?
The
Oh.
sister,
Yeah. What was her name? I have it
I
written
can't
down.
think of it.
I have it
but-
written down.
But she was kind of, she was
Slow?
Winnie's grandmother.
You mean godmother?
Godmother. She was Winnie's nana.
I remember her
And
coming.
she wasn't too sharp. She said, they called Winnie Doucette. She said, Doucette, je vais te faire un gâteau gros comme ça. She turned her head and she said, well, je vais te faire un gâteau, I'll make you a cake that big. And I can still see her say, je vais te faire un gâteau comme ça. And her husband, I forgot if his name was Louis or Harvey, he had some name too. He was a blacksmith in the country, but they just barely.
You know how
got by.
Grandma said that they had taken in this hobo for a while? Do you remember that story?
Yeah.
Did you ever meet him?
No, that was
That was
before.
long before.
Oh, that was before we were married.
Yeah.
They were living in Riedel, and the guy in the hobo would come every winter. In the summer, he'd go north, but you know it was
And
cold.
he would live in the barn, Grandma said, and he
He'd
would
live
work.
in the barn,
He'd work.
and he'd work, and you know they'd feed him, and I guess he'd come and live in the barn and do work for his keep. Like it was like they call them hobos,
Yeah.
and some of them, well, it was a pretty good
Well,
deal.
I'm
for,
sure they became
it,
kind of like.
it was a pretty good deal for Grandpa,
Yeah.
you know, because
He just room and board,
Just-
I guess.
just because the room and board, and he lived in the barn. He didn't even live in the house.
It's strange how people live that way. You know, out at Mark's station, he has homeless people that come every winter and stay in the woods and beg, I guess. But
Well, yeah.
he sees some of the same people year after year.
And you know what? They call them gypsies now.
Yeah.
I guess
They like to live that way.
Yeah. Maybe they call them hobos, but gypsies. Or,
Did you see any of that around your mom's house growing up?
no, not in Ville Platte. Most of them lived in the country. And some people in Ville Platte didn't have barns. And so I guess the hobos and stuff, those people lived more in the country.
It's going to hurt tomorrow, probably.
I guess so.
Well, I guess you learned one thing tonight, not to eat too fast. What time is it?
It's 10:30, so I guess better try to sleep. But I enjoyed visiting. But
Yeah. Oh.
well, I have to. Oh yeah. I'll have to go brush.
Maybe
my
you
teeth.
shouldn't go to Reds with that. If it's
Well,
broken, you
well,
might hurt yourself.
In that recliner, it won't be too.
I know, but I wouldn't say you would want to go to Reds.
What?
Going to Reds with that broken, if it's broken or something. Yeah, they picked you up,
Boy.
and you were just like a limp rag doll.
Yeah. And
You must have passed out.
I was this close.
Yeah, Papa, you'd stop breathing. You scared me to death.
Well,